The clerk will call the roll.
There we go. Freeman, Fusco, Hoke, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Samples, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
Yes, thank you. Please stand for the prayer to be led by Minister Marissa Saunders.
Thank you, President, Council, Mayor, and the wonderful leaders here in Akron, Ohio. Lord Jesus, I welcome you into this space and into this meeting. Lord God, I ask that your will be done on this evening, Lord God. Father, I pray for every person under the sound of my voice. I pray that you will bless them in a special way. Father, one prayer that I want to just pray tonight is for love. Father, I pray that your love will be felt through this room tonight, that your love will bind our councilmen and women together. I pray and I ask that your love would invade every part of the city of Akron, each ward, each home, each heart. Lord, someone in this room may need a special touch of healing. I pray for that as well, Lord God. Finally, Lord, I pray for our wonderful mayor and those who are leading our country, our city. I ask that you will bless them, protect them, and keep them. Father, I thank you for the city of Akron, and I thank you for what you're getting ready to do in our city. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to ask Council Representative Milkovich if he'd like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk will read the minutes from the previous meeting.
Minutes from the December 2nd, 2019 meeting. Council convened in regular session at 7 p.m. with President Somerville in the chair. All members were present except Kamer, later excused. Minutes of the previous regular meeting were approved. Vote 10-0. Freeman did not vote, and Neal abstained, and Kamer was absent. Reading of petitions and communications. Passage of the consent agenda. Report of standing and special committees. Passage and referral of new ordinances and resolutions. Representation from various departments and divisions. Public speaking period. No further business on a motion by Swirsky. Council adjourned at 7:40 p.m. to reconvene a regular session on December 9, 2019, or special call.
Yes, thank you. Any corrections or additions? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Mr. Clerk, one abstention.
Okay.
Letters, petitions, and communications.
Petition of Wasalan, Okinawa, for a conditional use to establish a child daycare business center, Type A, at 1170 Diagonal Road.
Refer.
Petition of Franklin Land Associates, LLC, for a conditional use to construct a discount store on the south side of North Case Avenue across from Bank Street.
Refer.
Semi-annual report of the Akron Civil Rights Commission.
File.
Correspondence from Amy, no last name given, regarding the harassment at the library.
File. Thank you. Consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? The ayes have it.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hoke, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Samples, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
Very good. Committee reports. Rules. I'd like to ask Chairwoman Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today, the Rules Committee met on an ordinance that was read in last week and again this week, and the committee had an adverse report on this particular ordinance. So having said that, I would like to bring this to council as a whole this evening to have a vote on that. And possibly the clerk, I can read it in.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is an ordinance amending and supplementing Title III, Administration, Chapter 30. Okay. Mayor and Council, Section 30.11, limits on monetary and in-kind contributions and loans of the Akron Codified Ordinances and declaring an emergency.
Yes, thank you. So the report of the committee is adverse?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
No vote on it.
Yes, so is there any questions or comments? Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the dialogue we had this evening, but since some of our colleagues weren't here, I just want to restate why this piece came. And hopefully members had a chance to read the article that was supporting documentation, which was an article that was in the Beacon Journal on February 4th of this year. In our city, we talk about the Elevate Akron report and trying to bring equity about in our city. And as I stated this evening, when we talk about equity, it's not just in commerce. This whole discussion of equity stems from this nation's unsolved sin, which is slavery. There's four pillars that support inequity in any community. It's commerce, it's government, it's religion, and it's education. Those four institutions made it possible for slavery to exist in this country for some 200-something years. So now we're dealing with the remnants of it, and all across the country we're talking about equity and inclusion. So how does this fall on this piece right here? We're dealing about PAC money. If you've been reading anything in the Beacon Journal, it talks about the economic state of our community, the city of Akron. So what does PAC money allow folks to do? It allows you to max out your personal contribution and then give money to a PAC that then funds and gives, so you can give more than once. It's almost like stuffing the ballot box. You get one vote when you go to the ballot box. But with a PAC, you get to give money again and again and again and again. And that disenfranchises the average voter. We talk about how the PAC allows people to give their money, $25 here, $30 there, and it all come together so that they can support. But this isn't stopping any individual from doing that. The reason why I brought this forward is because I was concerned with the article that was written in the February 4th article that talked about how money came into our elections and how a lot of those folks have contracts with the city. Now we have challenges on trying to find out equitable procurement for folks here. I think and we've had this discussion around this horseshoe, understanding what does it mean when we talk about equity? What does it really mean when we talk about inclusiveness? Our system, the way it's set up right now, and it was stated in that article, creates an unfair advantage for certain folks who have the money to give more than once. Now, this is a Democratic, all-Democratic body around this horseshoe. Most of us know that the Democratic Party was suffering, was underfunded, or almost on the verge of, I'll use the term bankrupt. So where did all that money come from? When we had talked about doing away with the primary, there was a lot of concern about, well, we don't want Republicans getting involved in our election. If the Democratic Party didn't have money, and that article showed us that $1.2 million came in over a certain period of time, and then in the race, almost $500,000 through PACs. Where do you think that money came from? So when we talk about trying to, as we're a representative government, protect the interests of our citizens so that their voice, the beautiful thing about the way our election process works is one vote, one voice. But the way this is set up right now, where people could put money in the PACs, it dilutes that. If you have the ability to max out your contribution to a candidate, do that. you should. But what the PAC allows you to do is, just like I said, it allows you to go and vote again and again and again and again. And we see how money influences races. This would impact everybody the same if this council and those that run for mayor said no PAC money. Now the beautiful thing about it is, if someone has a concern, because I hadn't heard from anyone over the time that this has been out, this doesn't really come into effect until 2023. But what it does is that this body would send a message saying that we respect the one voice, one vote, and we want to protect that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Mobian?
I'm rise to just state that I don't want anyone to misinterpret my vote tonight. I strongly support what Mr. Neal is trying to accomplish, because it's true that we need to take some of this money out of politics. But that goes to let's end Citizens United, which is that super PAC thing that the Supreme Court justices approved. What people need to realize that even for someone like myself, I may benefit from a PAC, but I can only benefit up to the $750 limit. And that is what this addresses. And I know what you're saying, Councilman Neal, that someone can give me a donation and they can also donate to the PAC that I'm receiving a contribution from. But I can assure you it's rare that I get all of that, but, but I understand the point you're making. But the large dollars come through Citizens United. So I will be voting against this, and I think that's what the ordinance will say. It's an adverse ordinance or legislation. However, I do agree that we need to take some of these dollars out of politics because it prevents the little man, little woman from participating fairly in the political game. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Okay, very good. Just to reiterate, the report of the committee was adverse, so therefore adverse. I'm going to ask for a vote in favor of the adverse report, okay, or against the adverse report. All right, very good. With no further questions or comments, all those in favor of the adverse report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Very good. Roll call.
Roll call. Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Hoke.
Nay.
Kamer.
Aye.
Keith.
Aye.
Kilby. Milkovich.
No.
Sample. Neal. Amobian. Sims. Somerville is not here. Swirsky.
Aye.
Okay. With, who's absent here tonight?
Somerville.
Ms. Somerville, it's 8 for the adverse report and 4 against the adverse report.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to planning. We have 3 items that are up for a public hearing.
Correct.
It was 8 to 4. 8 to 4.
Okay.
We have 3 items that are up for public hearing this evening.
Okay, the first public hearing, ordinance.
We have to swear in.
Oh, okay.
If there's anyone here wishing to testify this evening in reference to the public hearings, please stand and be sworn in by a representative of our law department.
Please stand and raise your right hand and answer affirmatively. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give tonight is the truth? Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, legal notice. Notice hereby given the following public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, December 9th, 2019, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. in Akron City Council Chambers, 166 South High Street, on an ordinance authorizing conditional use to place an outdoor advertising display billboard at 475 East North Street.
Mr. Antonucci will now receive a report from the Planning Department.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Contiers LLC is requesting permission to place a double-faced electronic billboard display to a height of 205 feet to be visible to State Route 8 bridge traffic on this property. The V-shaped display is proposed to be attached to a tapered monopole column to the rear of the building. Each LED panel would measure 14 feet in height and 48 feet in width for 672 square feet in area. The billboard would extend a maximum of 205 feet above ground. The Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission reviewed the advertising display and recommended its approval. The planning staff is of the opinion that a billboard is not suitable in the proposed location. Guidelines for approving outdoor advertising displays are found in section 153.385 of the zoning code. One such provision is that no ground bulletin shall exceed the height district as found in this code, or of a maximum height of 50 feet, whichever is less. The display requires a height of more than 4 times this limitation. The extremely tall structure would appear out of place adjacent to the bridge, overlooking the forest of the Little Cuyahoga River Valley below, and along the streetscape of North Street. The Route 8 bridge is scheduled to be completely replaced with new separate northbound and southbound structures in the next 5 years. Great attention has been given to creating not only a safe bridge structure, but an attractive design as well. The size of the new deck structure will be formed by an 8-foot tall aesthetic fence panel atop a 42-inch parapet wall. One goal of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan is to promote the growth of visually pleasing environment by providing visual relief and conserving natural and ecological resources through urban open space. The proposed LED advertising display would intensify visual clutter and detract from a location where the beneficial calming effects of urban green space are visible. And both planning staff and planning commission recommend disapproval.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use proposed for 475 East North Street? Please provide your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. My name is Kyle Kramer. I'm the attorney for the applicant of the conditional use permit, Contiers LLC. My address is 50 South Main Street, 10th floor here in Akron, Ohio. I also have with me John Carrera, who is the owner of Contier LLC, who will be testifying and answering some questions that you may have. And Dwayne Bartow, who is the owner of the property on North Street, is also here with us and would like to make a few comments. Before I begin, we do have some materials that we would like to pass out to members of council, if that's okay.
Sure.
And for anyone who was here this afternoon with planning, these are revised, updated materials from what was supplied this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'd like to start off by addressing some of the finer points from the revised code sections that are applicable to this application for the conditional use, and as well as reiterate some of the items that were specifically addressed by the Urban Design Commission and the Planning Commission at prior meetings earlier this month. After I do that, Mr. Carrera will also be giving some more of the technical and specific information and answering any questions regarding the actual sign. I'd like to start by saying, as we have indicated in every public meeting that we've attended, Mr. Carrera is not only motivated to building this billboard, he is willing and able to make it look however this council would require, whatever would be considered beneficial and harmonious for the city. John is more than willing to work with the city of Akron to get that done. And so I will address some of the points that are raised in the revised code section 153.474. When we were before the Urban Planning Commission, there was a lot of discussion of the aesthetics of this sign, how it will look in the surrounding area, and whether or not a sign of this size and nature could be harmonious with the new Route 8 bridge that's going to be constructed. Now, as you may see in the handouts that are provided, and as John will speak to a little bit more technically, what we're proposing is that this sign can look very similar to the new Route 8 bridge. So it won't only be harmonious with the bridge in the area, it can be complementary to the bridge in the area. This is an opportunity for the city to benefit from a private investor pouring some money into signage that can be very much a part of the general concept and the comprehensive plan in that area. I would also like to point out there was some concern and discussion from urban design regarding the Cuyahoga River Valley and the general scenic nature of that area. That's simply not the case of where that area is. It's the property where the sign is going to be constructed, proposed to be constructed, is an auto body shop. The four surrounding properties are a bus garage, the juvenile detention center, a commercial zoned business venture, and an excavation pit. And so as you'll see through the materials provided, what the sign would actually preventing from view are the view of a few trees that are in front of the juvenile detention center, depending on what way you're traveling on Route 8. Dwayne Bartow will speak a little bit more to how his property is situated, but the simple fact is that there's no scenic view that's going to be blocked, and so I think some of those concerns that have been raised are illegitimate for purposes of this proposed sign. And then just to rehash, you can see that there's some examples of very beautiful signs that John and his team have designed, and we would be willing to accommodate whatever requirements in terms of materials, in terms of some dimensions that can be worked with, or anything else that council and the city would deem advisable. I'd like to turn to the other code section for outdoor advertising that Mr. Antonucci referenced. He didn't state the entire provision that he referenced in referencing the height of 50 feet. If you look at revised code section 153.385, subsection A6, the pertinent section reads, no ground bulletin whose supports and braces are of steel or other approved non-combustible material and whose face is of non-combustible construction, FRTW wood, as approved by the superintendent of building inspection and regulation, shall exceed the height district as found in this code or a maximum height of 50 feet, whichever is less. That's not the type of sign that's being proposed to be built here. The application that was filed by John Kira, this is for a digital billboard. The face of the sign will not be constructed of FRTW wood. And so because of that reason, this section of the code is not applicable to this sign. And there's examples of this throughout the city of Akron. Some have been provided in your packet. The exact dimension, or the exact height of those signs we don't have this evening, as this was just brought up this afternoon. But there are other signs on Route 8 as well as other places in the city of Akron that look very similar to what we're proposing that are certainly over 50 feet. And so I can't sit here and state what the reason those permits would have been granted, but presumably it's because this section of the code that references the 50 feet height requirement is not applicable to this type of sign. Lastly, I'd like to mention, it was discussed this afternoon before the planning committee that we believe because of that provision of the code being applied to this sign, as well as some other issues with the revised code not being narrowly tailored and objective to this sign, that there may be some constitutional issues applying this code section to our sign permit. I in no way intended to state that as any type of threat. I just wanted to make those issues aware to council and also to convey that John has hired constitutional expert counsel outside of the state of Ohio to address this if need be moving forward. And so not only reason of making you aware of that and providing the letter from John's counsel in Indiana is so those issues can be before the council, and so John's motivation level and his intentions can be very transparent and open. And so I'm going to allow John to speak a little bit more about some of the specifics and the technicalities on the sign itself, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request?
My name is John Kireda. I am the owner of this proposed sign. My address is 1842 Shawnee Drive in Sydney, Ohio. I am an electrical engineer by profession, used to work for Honda for many years. Then I got into the sign industry, and recently I quit my job to do signs full time. I have these signs all over the country, different cities. And one thing I can say about the sign industry is there's a lot of people that like them, there's a lot of people that don't like them. It's perfectly okay. If a city does not like a sign, what they do is they basically put their code in a way that you cannot put a sign. Cuyahoga Falls next door, they do not allow signs. So I would never even try to put a sign. But when your code allows to put a sign and it meets every specification called out on the code, it becomes very difficult for the city to come back and say no. A good example, and we'll go through it, I revised the packet I brought in today, and I would like to just go through the packet real quick so that everybody is on the same page. So page 1 is basically the location of the sign from the top view. Page 2 is how it would look from State Route 8. Page number 3 is how it looks today without the sign. On the bottom page of number 3 is the parcel number that I'm trying to put a sign. One of the questions came up today, who owns the property? Mr. Duane owns the property. I will be leasing a small ground from his property to build the sign, and we have some agreement with him, so he gets compensated for that. It's good for his business, and he gets to earn some extra money. So that's how I do it. You go to different cities, you find an owner of a good property, you strike a deal, they win, you win. So that's how it works, and that's what I have with Mr. Duane. On page number 4 is the street view of his property right now. This is the view that supposedly is not going, that my sign is gonna look out of place. If you look at the view, these pictures are taken from Google Maps, very recent, you can tell it's not that great of a neighborhood that they claim to be. To be honest, I think my sign will complement this look. I think it will clean it up, and it will probably be one of the better looking items on this background. On page number 5, this is provided by Ohio Department of Transportation. This is the proposed new bridge. So the state is putting a lot of money on this bridge. This is the concept. Page number 6 is my designer has included how my sign will look on the new proposed bridge. So basically you can see it's really not blocking anything. You can see some of the trees in the background, which means those trees are at least 150 feet tall. So the sign, even though it sounds like a big sign, it doesn't look out of place because everything around it is the same size, if not bigger. Then we go to page number 7. I have worked with the Ohio Department of Transportation. I have to work with them because of, so the way it works on the sign industry is, if I put a sign on Main Street is not controlled by the state of Ohio, so I would not need a state permit for if I'm putting a sign on Main Street. But if you're putting a sign on a state-controlled route, you need a state permit. So I've worked with them, and page number 7 is a permit granted by ODOT for me to go ahead and build that sign. And we went through the same thing. They told me about the new bridge. We went back and forth, and they basically, it meets all the specification of a new sign on an interstate. So that's number 7. Number 8 is, some people will ask, like, what does the sign advertise? So number 8 is just regular businesses, McDonald's, Powerball, Kroger, just normal businesses. It's just a normal sign advertising regular businesses within the city. For example, that sign that we're proposing to build, my guess is the day it goes up, if it does get built, 80% will be sold out. Akron is a big city, big businesses, it's good for business. If I was struggling to get customers to put on this sign, I would not be putting this sign up. So the numbers tell themselves. These businesses around here that would want to be on that sign to promote, grow their business, the university, the colleges, the hospitals, you will see a lot of those people on the sign. Page number 9 is an example of similar signs. Those are actually taller. My sign is proposed to be 205 feet. Those are 225 feet. This is on 480 in Independence, Ohio. This is a brand new bridge, bigger than the proposed one. And from the ground, you can see the sign is massive, but it sits next to a bridge that is twice as big. So driving on the bottom picture, you can see it looks the same. I mean, you cannot even tell this sign is 200 feet because you only see the section that is above the road. So to say that this sign will be out of place, that's not quite accurate. Number 10 is just an example of different signs across the country that the sign doesn't have to be just a steel pole and the TVs on it. We can dress up the sign to fit whatever the environment is. And we have offered, finance being aside, we have offered to do whatever it takes to fit. You know, that's why I got the drawings from ODOT to show what the bridge is gonna look like. That way I can try to make my sign kind of fit in, if not better. Then number 11 is just other examples of signs. Like I said, it's perfectly okay for city to like signs or not like the signs. It all depends on who controls the city and if they like the sign or not. These are examples of different cities that love signs. They actually work with independent people to try to build these signs. So those are very good looking signs. The bottom one is the city of Sydney. We just made this deal and we are going to build them this sign with the bricks and it's gonna say, welcome to the city. They get some free advertising space to help the local businesses or whatever it is they want to do. Number 12 is the same way, just more examples of good-looking signs. Then we go to number 13. Today, after this meeting, one of the ladies pointed different signs around the city asking how tall they are. Page number 13 is Love-Free, a 50-foot sign. This is how it would look. This is a normal sign. You guys probably know this sign. It's on Stay Out 8 coming in. Then you go to page number 14. This is a different sign within the city that is well over 50 feet requirement. This sign is, if I had to take a guess, I would say about 90 feet. And it's within the city. Page number 15 is the same thing. This is another sign on 277. It is well over 100 feet. Then there's page number 16, another sign, fairly new on I-77 within the city limit of Akron. This is about 60 foot. Then we go to the number 17. Number 17, I won't go to much details because Kai already explained that. The 50-foot section on the code does not apply to this sign because that's for a wooden sign, and it makes a lot of sense. If you're building a wooden sign, you will not want it to be more than 50 feet. So then number 18 is just example of different cities controlling signs. A good example is Indianapolis. Indianapolis, they think the signs maybe don't look so good within the city limits. So what they have done is they picked 465 loop and they made a new code saying you can't put new signs on 465. So a guy like me, an investor like me, I'm not gonna try to put a sign within 465 because the code is very clear. It tells you very well. But if they did not do that and I tried to put a sign, then it's hard for them to stop me. Some of the other examples are Cuyahoga Falls, Monroe, Miami's Bad. They have absolutely just stopped doing signs, which is perfectly fine. One thing I was going to add about the sign today is this sign is 100% legal by today's code. We are not here for a variance. We're not asking for a favor here. This sign is 100% legal by today's code. Like I said, some cities don't like signs. The big concern I see about this sign is it's going to block Cuyahoga Valley. That's the view they're trying to protect. On your code, it says you cannot have a sign on residential district. So I will never put a sign on residential district because for some reason, somebody decided it's not a good thing. If Cuyahoga Valley was so important to you guys, why didn't you not put that on the code? No signs within Cuyahoga Valley. So I just feel like this is too late. They left it open. This sign is 100% legal. So Cuyahoga Valley doesn't, I think that's a whole different ballgame. Signs, some people like signs a lot. I mean, some city like signs. Last week I spent a whole week in Charlotte, North Carolina. The city of Charlotte likes signs. They think it's good for the city. I'm going in as a private investor, working with the city and the mayor to try to put the sign together. The city of Sydney was the same way. We just finished that deal 2 months ago. We're going to build a sign because for some reason they think they like the sign. one of the ladies today, the sign industry is a big industry. It employs thousands and thousands of people. It's a legal business. It's not like it's not a legal business. One of the ladies called billboards read on a stick or trash on a stick. I take a lot of offense on that in so many levels because that's how many people, thousands of people feed their family. So for somebody to call it trash on a stick, I think that's not quite very fair because it's a legal business. That's how we make our living. That's how we feed our family. Signs, some people, they're good. Like right now on some of my signs, there's a daughter trying to fight a kidney for her dad. So we gave it to her for free, and she's advertising to try to get a kidney for her dad. Political ads, Amber Alerts. Most cities actually require you to give them a free space on the sign. That way they can do like public announcement, like Amber Alerts or missing child. So please consider that while you make your decision. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'd just like to make one quick comment before I believe Mr. Bartow, the owner of the property at North Street, would like to say a couple of things. One of the examples that we didn't have in the packet that I think is the closest akin to what we're proposing is there's another sign a couple miles south of our proposed location on Route 8, right next to the football stadium. It looks exactly like our proposed plans, and as we've indicated, those plans aren't solid. John's willing to flex to accommodate the city, but I think that's a very good fairly recent example of a very similar sign within city districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wish to speak in favor of the conditional use request? Yes, sir. Please provide first your name and address.
My name is Dwayne Bartow, 475 East North Street. Myself and John, we've been talking about putting this sign up behind my building. We've also been to a few of these meetings around here. I'm trying to understand what you guys want to deny for. The state of Ohio has turned around and bought two businesses beside me. One was 65 foot away from me. They tore that building down 2.5, 3 months ago. The trucking company, about 150 feet, 200 feet away from them, they tore that building down. The state pretty much told me, we don't care if you live or die. We don't need your property. So when the state of Ohio turns around and starts building this bridge, and they close down East North Street, guess who goes out of business? It ain't you. It's me. My living. I'm trying to do something here to benefit me a little bit and benefit the city of Akron with a nice sign. Behind my shop is nothing but a mountain of dirt, water, and trees. I have a rock gravel right behind me on the top of the hill. When it rains real hard, the land runs down against my building. You guys are worried about the Cuyahoga Valley. Where my shop sits, that's not Cuyahoga Valley. That's a section of East North Street that the city of Akron does not take care of. You go past that, past the Route 8 bridge, going towards Howard Street, you got a sitting park. You got new homes that were rebuilt. You have an old junkyard, which is a construction company now. All I'm trying to do is better myself, just like the city of Akron's trying to better theirself. So why are you guys turning around and saying that this sign is going to be to a beast or an eyesore to the city of Akron? If you see the projected plan and see what ODOT has turned around and said, okay, this is what the bridge is going to be, somewhat like the Y Bridge, and you're going to have a nice sign up there. You get Amber Alerts, they get advertisement, they turn around, and any company in the city of Akron can advertise on that. It's not only going to benefit the city of Akron, it's gonna turn around and help the little bit of Cuyahoga Valley that you guys think is so great. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 475 East North Street? Anyone in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to speak against the proposal at 475 East North? Anyone against? Very good. Hearing none, we'll now close the public hearing. And Ms. Amobian, what's the wishes of the committee?
I think you've heard, Mr. President, that there are a number of questions, and I'd like to poll the committee for time. Mr. Kamer? Nay. Mr. Kamer? Nay. Mr. Neal? Excuse me? Aye. Mr. Swirsky? Aye. And?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco. So the committee would like to have take time.
Thank you, Ms. Mobian. Second item that's up for a public hearing. Mr. Clerk? Item will be referred.
Public hearing number 2, ordinance authorizing conditional use to construct an apartment building in the sale of city-owned land at 268 Wheeler Street, 451 to 453 Allen Street, and 449 Allen Street.
Mr. President, members of council, Anthony Messina, doing business as Commercial Industrial Construction Consultants, LLC, is requesting permission to construct an apartment building on these combined parcels. The proposed 3-story, 24-unit apartment building would consist of a mix of cultured stone veneer, hardy plank siding, and vertical metal siding. Single doors would be on the east and west elevations. The first floor will also contain laundry room and fitness room. Each floor will contain a mix of 1- and 2-bedroom units. The 24-space parking area meets code requirements. The goal of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan is to promote a variety of new housing types and price ranges to meet the requirements of this, and desires of the city's population. The anticipated rent for the units, which is $450 per bedroom, will be market rate comparable to apartment properties in the local area. The attractive apartment development will be an asset to the Soldier University Park neighborhood that is characterized by single-family homes converted into student housing and apartment buildings. The city would sell the property at appraised value. The plans are subject to review by the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission. Both Planning Commission and Planning staff recommend approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. At this time, we'll open up for the public hearing, and we'll ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 268 Wheeler Street.
Yes, I am Anthony Messina, owner of Commercial Industrial Construction. I met you earlier this afternoon. I think I went through
your address, sir? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask for your address.
Pardon me?
Address, please.
Oh, 34194 Aurora Road, Solon.
Thank you.
So, I have some graphics. I don't know if you want me to come up and put those up. Sure. As I explained to the planning committee this morning, this is basically the building. There's 3 city-owned lots right now on the corner of Wheeler and Allen Street, about 1,000 feet south of Exchange Street. And the city owns the 3 vacant lots now and is proposing to purchase those and construct. It's a 24-unit building, 3 stories, wood frame construction. There'll be 3 handicap units on the first floor. And the second and third floor will each have 8 units, 2-bedroom units apiece. This is pretty much what the building's going to look like. It's not 100% finalized yet, but there will be no vinyl siding on it. It'll be a stone veneer material, hardy plank siding. So it'll be an attractive, building back in the single-family home area right now. Those are 1940s style homes back there right now, which are all typically student housing, where they'll stick 4 or 5 students in the rooms, and then one central kitchen and one toilet room, one bathroom for everybody's use. So I'm a graduate of the University of Akron, so I've got experience living in those homes. So this is the we reconfigured the property a little bit, so the main elevation is going to be on Wheeler Street, and this will be probably the main entrance for the kids walking in and out. So this will give you an idea what the Allen Street exposure will look like. There'll be an entrance on the side, and the parking lot will be in the back here. So there are a couple single-family homes that'll be on the side of the parking lot. We'll screen off the parking lot with some kind of fencing material, either PVC fencing or a dog-eared board-on-board type fence. So. The building itself is going to be roughly 108 feet long, 52 feet deep. So this will be the parking lot entrance here, the south side of the property. There'll be a laundry facility, 5 washers, 5 dryers, what we could fit in, and you can see here the handicap units, the first 4 units, and then you can see the typical layout of what the 2-bedroom units will be. Be a general living area with a kitchenette on one wall with a full stove, microwave. Have a central bathroom in the middle and 2 bedrooms. The bedrooms will be roughly 10 by 10 on each side. So, and it's the bedrooms are typically about the size of a dorm room now, I guess. So the second and third floor will be pretty much the same. It is a 3-story walk-up, so the kids, whoever signs up to get in the building first will have the first floor units. But any questions anybody has? Pretty straightforward, so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 268 Wheeler Street? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone? Very good. Anyone wishing to speak against the proposed 24-unit apartment complex at 268 Wheeler Street? Anyone wishing to speak against? Hearing none, what's the wishes of the committee?
The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Yes. Pull the committee.
As we had a discussion this afternoon, you see that is a beautiful facility. Mr. Massini is targeting students, and we did have a good discussion about all of the facilities we have downtown, but he feels pretty confident that he'll be able to fill these units. So the recommendation is favorable.
Would like to pull the committee?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to poll the committee for a favorable report and suspension of the rules. Mr. Kamer. Mr. Neal. Mr. Swirsky. I think I've already given the explanation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. You've heard the report. Is there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you.
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hook, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Mobian, Sample, Sims, Somerville, Swirsky.
Thank you. We have a third item, excuse me, that's up for a public hearing. Mr. Antonucci?
Mr. President, members of council, Mary Dozier.
I apologize. Mr. Clerk should read it in first.
Sorry. Okay. Third public hearing, notice hereby given that the following public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, December 9th, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. in Akron City Council Chambers, 166 South High Street, on an ordinance authorizing conditional use to establish a child daycare business center at 927 North Portage Path.
Thank you. Mr. Antonucci?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Mary Dozier is requesting permission to establish a child daycare business center at this location. Proposed daycare center, also known as Auntie Mom's Child Care and Resource Center, would be located in a former church with up to 60 full-time or part-time children ranging from newborn to 12 years of age. The daycare would be operated Monday through Friday from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. There will be no overnight stays. The outdoor play area will be behind the building and fenced. Petitioner stated that she has a bachelor's degree in child and family development and has 29 years of experience. Proposed use should not be intrusive to the neighborhood, as the existing building is over 100 feet away from the North Portage Path right-of-way. Traffic congestion should not be an issue due to the length of the driveway, the location of the parking lot, and the children being dropped off and picked up at various times of the day. The reuse of this vacant former church site should not have a detrimental effect on nearby homes. Providing quality daycare service is beneficial to the entire city, and as such, the planning staff and planning commission supports this recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Antonici. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request for a daycare center at, where is it? Apologize. At 927 North Portage Path? If you can please provide for us your name and address.
Good evening, Council and Chair. My name is Michael Dozier. I reside at 1274 Country Club Drive, Akron. We're here tonight to ask for the zoning approval for unconditional use for the daycare center on North Portage Path. My wife here, she's a teacher in the Akron area, has been for many years, 29 years plus, and she's committed and devoted to helping children and families with the daycare service. I also help with the daycare myself. She employed me to do a lot of the necessary things to maintain the property, also to help out with the children when needed. And we just feel that it'll be a beneficial service to the community, and she might have something she might want to add.
My name is Mary Dozier. I live at 1274 Country Club Drive.
Thank you.
Akron, Ohio, 44313. I've been running the daycare out of my home since 2015. Just started out really as doing it part-time after work, and it kind of like blew up over the summer. So I had plans of going back to work that following fall. And I had my sister who was going to help out, and she was going to run it during the day, and I was going to take over when I got off work. And she got sick, and so I had all these people that needed care and nowhere to go. So I just said, well, I guess I'll just turn in my resignation and, do what I do. So here I am.
Thank you.
My home is too big. My home is too small now for the children that I serve, and that's why I'm seeking the building.
Thank you, Ms. Dozier. Thank you. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request? At 927 North Portage Path.
I think I need the affirmation.
You'll be sworn as a representative from our law department here to swear in this young man. He's sworn in.
Will you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth?
I do. My name is Shamus Malik. I live at 1087 Ellsworth Drive. I just wanted to say that twice over the last week I've seen these two individuals interact with neighbors in the area, and both times engage with concerns that the neighbors had, and after hearing concerns from the first time, take time to follow up and walk the property with the neighbors who own the adjoining property and address the concerns so much that they were all smiling when they left and talking about their Christmas plans and all kinds of things. So I just think that they ought to be commended for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 927 North Portage Path? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone? Anyone wishing to speak against the conditional use request at 927 North Portage Path? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone? Okay, very good. We'll close the public hearing. And is there a recommendation from the committee?
Yes, Mr. President. I'd like to poll the committee for a favorable report and ask for suspension of the rules. Mr. Kamer. Mr. Neal. Mr. Swirsky?
Aye.
Ms. Fusco?
Aye.
Okay. The committee's heard the request of the couple. I hope you feel a little bit better about us now that you've done it twice. She indicated she was very nervous this afternoon. As she indicated, she's been doing this business for a long time, and she's met with Councilwoman Marilyn Keith, and she's now looking for larger quarters, and it sounds like she's done a wonderful job. I don't know, Mrs. Keith, did you want to add anything to? Sure.
Yes, Ms. Keith.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Amobian. I just want to say, if more people would, when going for a conditional use, would listen to what Mike Antonucci always advises, and that is to reach out to your councilperson. That would eliminate so much miscommunication and concerns that are brought up. Mary reached out to me immediately as we realized that there were some concerns of the neighborhood. We decided to have a meeting. We had that meeting, the concerns were brought up, and this is where compromise works so very well with communication. The people in the neighborhood expressed their concerns. We were able either to address them with a condition now that you will see in this, or to disarm the concern by giving them facts. And the facts are that she will be open from 5 in the morning until 6 in the evening, 5 days a week. There'll be no overnight. This was a Jehovah's Witness hall at one time. There will be no additional traffic because these children are being dropped off at separate times and picked up at different times. So even though Mary was nervous about coming to the podium, she said in our closing of our meeting that I had with Councilman-elect Shamus Malik is that, and me, she said, I just want to be a joy to these people that I need to serve. And I thought, you know what, that would be my leading comment that I would start off with. I just want to be a joy. You know, I think sometimes we get caught up with people's wants and with needs. She's meeting a need in our community, and I thank her. She has a great foundation, and my children, I would not think twice about sending them there, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Keith. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk?
Roll call on final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hoke, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Sample, Sims, Swirsky.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'll move on to the balance of the agenda. I believe item number 4, we have a substitute to be read in by the clerk for item number 4.
Item number 4, offered by Fusco, ordinance authorizing conditional use to establish a cleaning business at 795 East Wilbeth Road and declaring an emergency.
Yes, Councilwoman Amobian.
I think this new ordinance has come in with some conditions. Mr. Kamer, would you like to address? Well, the new ordinance has come in with some conditions that address the concerns that were raised at the previous meetings. And with that, we would like to, is a favorable report.
Well, thank you. With suspension of the rules?
With suspension of the rules.
I believe we do have to pull the committee for this.
We'll pull the committee. Mr. Kamer? Mr. Neal? Mr. Swirsky?
Aye.
Mr. Fusco?
Aye. Yes, thank you. The report of the committee is favorable with suspension of the rules. Any other questions or comments at this time?
No.
Very good.
Sounds like the owner is willing to address the concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Amobian. Very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it.
Roll call on final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Sample, Sims, Swirsky.
The balance of the agenda, you want to file number 5 and number 6? Those are two that we addressed tonight. Or do you want to take time? I know we can file them. We've already addressed them. Number 7, we took time.
Yes.
And number 8, there was a substitute.
So you can file that one?
I filed that one.
Thank you.
And time on the balance of the agenda.
Okay, very good. With that, well, I was going to go through it.
Okay.
I believe Public Service, Ms. Keith? It's going to be time under the... It's going to be time, so I'll get it right.
It's hard to believe we're still on the old agenda.
Yes, we are.
With Public Service, I would like to ask for time because the Equalization Board has not met yet. And once they meet, we'll be addressing these two, so time on that.
Thank you. And Public Utilities?
Time, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Neal, briefly, very briefly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very brief.
In light of us passing legislation last week that said anything at the end of the year is going to be wiped off the slate, we took time on that one. Are we going to vote on that sign next week?
No, the thing of it is if the legislation that we passed last week said everything comes off the agenda excluding the conditional zonings.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clear.
Good point. Mayor Horrigan, I believe you have, we have some guests here. I ask council for a few moments of time. Mayor Horrigan would like to introduce some guests I believe we have here.
Thank you. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy agenda. It's not every day I think we get to honor a company that is growing not only locally but across the state of Ohio. If you guys could all come up here. If you're from DRIPS, I want to read this proclamation. Heather, can you have them come on up and you can make some comments after that. They brought their family down too, but as I read this proclamation, DRIPS was co-founded by A.C. Evans and Anthony Greco and went public in January in 2016. DRIPS is not a coffee company. DRIPS has recently been ranked as the 20th fastest growing company in North America on Deloitte's 2019 Technology Fast 500. DRIPS has had nearly 5,000% growth during the Deloitte Awards 3-year time period. It's the first conversational texting company of its kind, founding a new category and leading the way for some of the biggest brands in the world to use automated humanized conversations at scale. DRIPS has been a large contributor to many local organizations in the community. They've opened their office in downtown Akron Art Walks, volunteered at the Boo at the Zoo, invested in restoring the historic office downtown in the Arts District, sponsored the Nantucket Concert Series in downtown, and donated furniture to the Nightlight Cinema, just to name a few, and this is the most proud part. Now, therefore, I, Daniel Horrigan, Mayor, City of Akron, do hereby proclaim Monday, December 9th, 2019 as DRIPS Day here in the city of Akron. So congratulations very much.
Hi, I wasn't prepared with any words. Happy to share a couple of thoughts. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are born and bred in the Midwest. We do not look very much for funding or outside capital. There's a lot of people that just focus on building businesses that pay their bills and create jobs. And I'm proud to have a Silicon Valley looking company in Akron, Ohio. We're still profitable, still growing, and have taken in no outside funding. So it's just an exciting thing to have built here and to be able to represent a really cool company in a great city. We're up to 72 employees now. As the mayor said, we're the 20th fastest growing company in America in Deloitte's Fast 500 technology listing. So just very humbled to be here. I'm an Akron U alumni of sorts, dropped out in my second semester, but still a fan of the university and the city. So proud to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for being here. Thank you for located here in Akron. Thank you. Very good. We'll always receptive to good news. Thank you so much for being here in our town and here this evening. With that, we'll now move on to the new list of legislation.
Let me see if I can find it.
Okay. Here's
If I got it here somewhere. I'm sure I do. There we go. Wait a minute. Just for the record, we've done.
Here's budget and finance. Okay. Yeah, you okay?
Wait a minute. Okay.
got it? You okay?
Yep.
Very good. Mr. Keith?
Item number 1, offered by Keith, ordinance amending ordinance number 93, 2019, passed March 25th, 2019, and ordinance number 275, 2019, passed 30, 2019, which established the annual appropriation for current expenses, other expenditures, and the capital outlays for the city of Akron for the fiscal year December 31st, 2019, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Representative Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee met today. The conclusion was we'd love to have this placed on the consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. Item number 2?
Item number 2, offered by Keith, ordinance authorizing Director of Finance to pay costs associated with the city's participation in miscellaneous organizations, associations, and agencies, declaring an emergency.
Ms. Keith?
Mr. Chair, the committee would like this item to also be placed on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Item number 3?
Item number 3, offered by Keith, ordinance authorizing issuance of a bond of the city in a principal amount not to exceed $10 million for the sale of the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund of the state of Ohio to finance the cost of improvements to the city's wastewater system, pledging certain revenues from the city's wastewater system on a subordinated basis to secure the payment of the principal and of the interest on the bond, and authorizing execution and delivery of the bond, the trust agreement, and other documents, and taking of other actions related to the issuance and sale of the bond, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Chair, the committee's report is favorable, and we ask for suspension of the rules.
Thank you.
The reason why we're asking for suspension of the rules is we would like to lock in at this rate, and it is just good for the city all around.
Very good. You've heard, is there any questions or comments? You've heard the favorable report with suspension of the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it. Mr. Keith?
Roll call and final passage. Freeman, Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Sample, Sims, Swirsky.
Very good.
Item number
4.
4, ordinance authorizing issuance of a bond of the city in a principal amount not to exceed $99 million for the sale of the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund of the state of Ohio to finance the cost of improvements to the city's wastewater system, pledging certain revenues from the city's wastewater system on a subordinated basis to secure the payment and the principal and interest on the bond, and authorizing the execution and delivery of the bond, the trust agreement, and other documents, and taking of other actions related to the issuance and sale of the bond, and declaring an emergency.
Ms. Keith?
Mr. Chair, the committee's report is favorable, and we are asking for suspension of the rules.
Very good.
Once again, we are asking for suspension of the rules to lock in at this particular time.
Very good. You've heard the report for suspension of the rules of favorable. Is there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk?
Roll call and final passage. Fusco, Hope, Kamer, Keith, Kilby, Milkovich, Neal, Amobian, Sample, Sims, and Swirsky. Item number 9.
Thank you.
Ordinance authorizing the purchase of VL Dan Street for the Dan Street Parking Expansion Project and declaring an emergency.
Ms. Amobian?
Was that number 5 that you were doing?
Number 9.
Number 9, I'm sorry. I was busy talking. I believe that we, did we take time on this one? Consent agenda.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 10, Mr. Keith?
1 second. Item number 10, offered by Fusco. Ordinance declaring the improvements to certain real property located in the Eastgate 2 urban redevelopment area to be a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, declaring that construction and the rehabilitation of certain real property is a public purpose, providing for the collection of service payments in lieu of taxes and the deposits of those service payments in the Urban Redevelopment Tax Increment Equivalent Fund, providing for the payment of a portion of said service payments to the Akron Public School District and declaring an emergency.
Ms. Movian?
Yes. Mr. President, if I remember correctly, this is a favorable report with suspension of the rules?
No, it's on the consent.
Agenda.
Consent as well?
Yeah.
Consent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 11, offered by Keith. Ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the purchase of materials needed by the various divisions and departments of the city for a period of time not to exceed 3 years, approving specifications therefore and declaring an emergency.
Ms. Keith?
Mr. Chair, the committee would like this item to be placed on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Item number 12, offered by Keith. Ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into an agreement or agreements without the formality of advertising for bids for the purchase of miscellaneous supplies, services, repair, parts, and labor for machinery and equipment used by various divisions and departments of the city for a period of 1 year, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Ms. Keith?
Mr. Chair, the committee would like this item to be placed on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, item number 13, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts for the repair and replacement of concrete apron located around Fire Station 11 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Kamer?
Thank you. Committee's report is to place this item on consent agenda, please.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 14, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts for repair, renovation, replacement of the kitchen at Fire Station number 6 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Kamer?
Thank you. Committee's report is once again to place this item on consent agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Item number 15, offered by Kamer. Ordinance authorizes Director of Public Service or his designee after publicly advertising for bids to enter into a contract for the repair and or replacement of a concrete apron located at or around Fire Station number 10 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Kamer?
Thank you. Committee's report is to place this item on consent agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, item number 16, offered by Mayor Horrigan. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the purchase of miscellaneous materials and services needed by the Department of Public Safety for a period of time not to exceed 3 years, approving specifications therefore and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Kamer?
Thank you. Committee's report is to place this item on consent agenda.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Item number 17, offered by Councilman Hope, resolution opposing and objecting to the application of Clutch Gentlemen's Club LLC, doing business as the Gentlemen's Club at 1890 South Arlington, Akron, Ohio, 44306 for a Class D1 and D3 liquor permit number 1546665, now pending before the Division of Liquor Control and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Kamer?
Thank you. Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Kamer?
Well, I don't know if the sponsor has any words that he wants to comment, but I also encourage my colleagues to hopefully pass this as council as a whole.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kamer. Any other, heard the favorable report with suspension of the rules. Any other comments or questions at this time? All those in favor of council as a whole signify by saying aye. Aye. All those in favor of the ordinance signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 18, offered by Sams. Ordinance approving the addition of the Covenant of Grace located at 3400 Copley Road to the Copley-Akron Joint Economic Development District, authorizing the mayor or his designee to amend the Copley-Akron JED agreement to include said properties and declare an emergency.
Sims?
Mr. Chairman, the committee's request is for consent agenda.
Thank you. Very good. That concludes the new legislation portion of this meeting. We'll now go to the portion of the meeting we refer to as our public comment period. If you wish to speak to this council during this time, you can approach the podium. Please sign in and state your full name, spell your last name, give us your address. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. Speakers are reminded that this is an official meeting. Remarks should be kept respectful and germane to the council business. Speakers should refrain from making personal attacks. Anyone who breaches decorum will be ruled out of order and may be removed from this council chamber. Okay? That's the ground rules. Very good. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this council? Please step forward.
Hi, I'm Fatima Rita, 967 Concord Avenue, Akron, Ohio, and I am going to talk about the water, trash, and sewer bills. I believe they said that I have to talk to City Council, that I guess the downtown they can't really do anything. I have some ideas that might benefit everybody. Number one is, what if we ask the tenant to put, like, say, a $100 deposit, and then if they don't pay the water bill after the first time, the second time they have to pay it all, as opposed to paying part of it. That way, the tenant doesn't have to come up with a large amount of money. They just have to come up with the balance of 2 months' bills. And then if they don't pay it, then the landlord does not have to pay as much money and let it keep going on. And what kind of precipitated this in my case is that I have one tenant that's paying the rent okay, but she keeps paying her water bill late. And her water bill, for some reason, is kind of high. I don't know why, but it's high. Anyways, it's like $200 a month. Anyways, she had the last month, her water bill was like $645, and the city said, pay $200 and we'll keep the water on. And I called them up. I said, why don't you make her pay all of it? Because she paid the $200 and it's still on, and then a couple days later she gets another water bill for another couple $100, so she's up to another $650, $700 or whatever it is. And then each month she's just paying a little bit on it. And if something happens and she doesn't pay or move, then you're going to have that water bill, which is like a month behind, plus by the time she moves out you'll have another month. So you might have a $1,000 water bill. So my thoughts are, have them pay a small deposit up front, shut the water off after the second month if they don't pay the amount in full. Don't let it keep going on and on and on. This way, the city's going to get more money sooner. The tenant isn't going to have a huge water bill to pay. And if something happens that the landlord has to pay it, then the landlord doesn't have to pay as much at one time. Now, of course, we can evict the tenant, you know, if they don't pay it, if you write your contract correctly. And, I mean, we could include the water bill in the regular rent, but sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. So I would like to see some changes made to make it better for everybody. I mean, this way, the city's going to get a little bit more money sooner. And, I mean, sometimes it goes on your tax bills, and then people lose the house, and so it all goes for nothing here.
You have about 20 seconds, ma'am.
Okay. So tell me what I need to do in order to make something like this happen. So,
Thank you. Thank you. It's noted. We'll be happy to meet with you after the meeting, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Darren Wright. Office address is 875 East Market Street, Akron, Ohio. I work with Upscale Media Group, and we do various events across the city. We have actually started a podcast segment that we're doing, which does community, civic, and sports as well. And one of the concerns that we've had is regarding the entertainment concert series at Lock 3 for African Americans during the summertime. There's a question with regards to what time frame is put in place with regards to the talent. We're actually going to host a segment, an ongoing community segment here. In the next couple of weeks, we'd like to invite anyone from City Council or the point person to speak with us here regarding this open forum that we're going to have and kind of bring us just some ideas with regards to when the talent is secured, what time the talent of the year is set forth, and who do we speak to with regards to bringing our thoughts and opinions forward.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wright. Thank you. Talk after the meeting. Anyone else wishing to speak to council this evening? Anyone else? Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair and Council. My name is Ron Brubaker, B-R-U-B-A-K-E-R. I live at 7593 Partridge Meadows Drive East, Hudson, Ohio. I represent a group called Task Force. You'll see it described in this flyer that's being passed around. TASC, T-A-S-C, is an acronym for Trail Advocates of Summit County. Force is just a little thing we tacked on the end to show how committed we are to advocating. In the middle, you'll see a map. There's an abandoned rail line that starts in Akron, runs north through Cuyahoga Falls, Silver Lake, Stowe, and into Hudson. Most of it is owned by Metro RTA. They've owned it for 25 years. The last train ran on it 23 years ago. It's in very bad repair, and there's very little interest in having rail on that. Metro is considering allowing it to be converted to a multi-purpose path like the ones that Summit Metro Parks have. In fact, you'll see several trails on that map that are existing trails with Summit County, and there's proposed trails on the map. So there's like 6 connections with existing or proposed trails. We've been meeting with city councils and engineering departments, planning departments, park departments in those 5 communities. In the case of Akron, we've met with Mike Teodecki and David Clapp. They've expressed some interest. We'd like to provide council with more detail about this proposal and ask for letters of support to go to both Metro RTA and Summit Metro Parks to support this trail.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll meet with you after the meeting. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Wishing to speak? Anyone else? Very good. We'll close this portion of the meeting and now go into our committee meetings. Rules, Ms. Keith. Budget and Finance, Mr. Freeman. A reminder, this council will meet at 5 o'clock and we'll have a swearing-in ceremony at 7 o'clock. But the committee meetings would, in essence, be the same. Okay. So, Budget and Finance, Mr. Freeman, 3. Planning, Ms. Mobian.
1.
Public Service, Ms. Keith.
2 o'clock.
Public Utilities, Samples.
2:30.
Public Safety, Mr. Kamer. 2:15. Parks and Recreation, Neal. 1:45. Housing, Mr. Kilby or Samples. Okay, we'll take it 3:30. Health and Social Service, Ms. Mobian. 2:30. Economic Development, Sims. 2:45. Green Committee, Swirsky.
12:30.
Very good. With that, anything else to come before council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes
Motion
have
to
it.
adjourn.
Is there a second? Oh. All those in favor signify by saying aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.